Hello, everyone. It's me, it's PrimeTime Moff, and I am joined, as ever, by my wonderful co-host, Oddimus Prime. Now, whether you're watching us or maybe you're even just listening to us on maybe your Spotify, we welcome you to our weekly show, which will take a new format as of today because this is a big year, like a silly big year, and it just gets worse or better, whichever way you want to look at it. In case of the hosting an episode, like a episodic show about them, it's probably worse because it's taken so much longer to do. In terms of, we got lots of new toys, that is better. So our weekly show, Transformers 84 to 24, 40 years of rolling out. A show that in this year's, where we are celebrating 40 years of Transformers, we are looking back and going through the vast history, and it is at a point where it is really vast history of Transformers. So if you're new to the show, you've never watched us before, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're covering each year of the franchise in its own weekly episodes. However, as of now, we're splitting it up into two just for ease of listening because nobody wants to listen to us drone on for 17 hours because that's what it feels like it's going to be. So each week we'll have two episodes airing now. On a Sunday, you'll have your regular normal episode where we will delve into the year. We'll look at kind of what comics, what media, stuff like that. We will maybe briefly mention toys, but we won't delve into toys. And then we'll do a toy-centric episode that will release on the Monday. And we'll try and keep that up for a full year. There are points where we have decided we're going to do some special episodes as well. And we've lost a couple of weeks, so we're going to end up having to do a couple of specials we're thinking over Christmas period just to give you something extra over that quiet time. Anyway, that's enough of rattling on. If you can cope through that intro and you cope through the episode, please remember to like, subscribe, turn on your notifications to make sure you don't miss anything as we go through this incredible journey. Simon, how are you?
I'm doing good. Yes, it's a Tuesday, which is a weird day to be recording on, but hey, Tuesday it is. Just got off the back of a couple of weeks of Transformers One related funness, and now we're going to go focus back into the year 2007, which, as you said, it's a bonkers year. I've done more prep for this episode than any other, and that's just copying and pasting pictures of the toys.
Do
19 lines of toys this year.
you know, things mad? Like, if we've talked through this journey, we've went through weeks where it was quite sparse, like
Mm.
being polite about it, it's quite sparse what was coming out. And now we're in a phase of, yeah, it's definitely not sparse. It's
No.
it's mad, and I'm going to be polite because we'll talk about the toys in the second episode. Some of it's absolute guff, and I think this is the era where absolute guff starts to come in because they are churning out stuff, and we haven't even talked, you know, all the tie-in products you get for the movies and all that kind of stuff
Yeah.
thereafter. We're literally going to just kind of try and stick to toys because if you went to tie-in stuff, even just the tie-in stuff for now for Transformers One, you can all different stuff.
Yeah.
It could be dangerous, so we are going to try and stick to the toys. But we will talk about the toys in our next part two of this year. Um, let's talk about media, right? So the elephant in the room, the first ever live action Transformers movie. Let's kick it off by going right into that. There's other good bits in this. There's really cool things that happen in this year,
Mhm.
but we'd be remiss not to say that our franchise changed dramatically in 2007. In my opinion, for the good.
Yeah.
I I still look forward to rewatching Transformers 2007. I talked when we talked in our special about Transformers One. I do think that potentially will become my second favorite. Transformers 2007 has been my second favorite for since it came out. I think Bumblebee's good,
Hmm.
but I also there's also a bit of me there's nothing quite like seeing Transformers live action for the very first time. That scene where Optimus Prime transforms is one of the best scenes in all of the franchise. And it was seeing it on big screen. I genuinely remember feeling kind of goosebumps going, oh. this is not. How can I be sitting here watching a Transformers live action film? And Bumblebee was good, but it gave me, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. Nothing has given me that same moment as that
No.
first Optimus Prime scene. That is just the all the cogs, all the bells and whistles was epic.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's so weird to think that that was so long ago. And there's been so much since and of such massively varying quality. And that film, it's not by any means perfect. There are lots of things we can talk about with it. We might delve into some of it, but um, by no means is it a perfect film. But in terms of seeing that sort of stuff for the first time in live action, seeing Optimus, seeing Blackout transform the first time you see anything transform in the film
Yeah.
is just phenomenal.
The noise,
Uh,
the transforming noise on the big screen where it's surround sound.
yeah,
Oh, amazing.
just
Amazing.
and kicking off so much potential. And yeah, it was. I made a slide with some numbers. We'll talk
Oh,
about that in a second. But it was a success. It wasn't the biggest film ever, but what it did was it got a lot of people into Transformers, into seeing the film, and then, maybe they go and buy a toy, or maybe they go and talk to their mate about it. Anyway, so but we'll discuss it a bit more later on. But this film did moderately well. But Revenge of the Fallen was ridiculous compared to this in terms of box office and exposure. And the films are sort of built and built and built. And yes, then there's a wee bit of a crash, but what it did was it exposed lots of people to Transformers as the brand that wouldn't necessarily be into it. People who would had a passing fancy of it when they were kids or played with it, or kids now or at the time going to the cinema, being taken by their parents, going with their friends and stuff like that. And also, it was a decent action movie. So
yeah,
people who
it
wouldn't
was.
normally
It
go and
was.
see a film about toys, were going to go and see it. And also, it just
No.
looked phenomenal. It was
Yeah,
it was
it,
such a
it
such
did.
a
It felt like the first event movie
yeah.
for like our kind of aspect. Am I right? This could be the first proper big budget kind of 80s product that was kind of brought into the 2000s. Like I can't think of another one that would have been like a that kind of reboot type of, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, you had like Batmans and whatnots all sort of coming up around the similar sort of time, but not nothing that was a specific 80s nostalgia trip being turned into a big thing like that. Because we hadn't had there's no new He-Mans, there hadn't been any. It was a couple of years before we got G.I. Joe. And yeah, so all of this stuff, it was the 80s nostalgia toys and pop culture stuff hadn't quite hit
uh,
the level. I mean, it's still a big thing now, but it was, yeah, this was the sort of the start of
yeah.
it.
I was trying to think there. I've just typed in a check because I think post this geek movies that previously would have been for geeks,
Mm,
suddenly became big box office. The one I was checking was Iron Man. And I knew
mm,
it was roughly the same time, but I couldn't remember if it was the same year or not. So Iron Man was 2008. But this was
mm.
the point where, we've talked about it before that geek became okay. Like
Yeah,
properly being a geek, it was okay to be because actually it starts to become popular culture and then people are into it.
yeah,
People who wouldn't have, my wee brother might see Transformers 2007 movie and would have had no interest at the time, but it just was like, I need to kind of go see what all this fuss is about. So it just shows you that there's kind of an aspect to it. But do you want to go through the numbers? Because I think we
yeah.
may as well go through the numbers and then we'll go into the other stuff.
Yeah. So it had a budget of $151 million, which is not exactly huge these days. I mean, you
Oh,
regularly
really
have
not.
things costing 200 or more than that. I mean, possibly rated for done for inflation, it's probably a little bit more than that. But it was
Yeah.
big. It was a big investment and a big, I suppose, a bit of a big risk with the studio because at the end of the day, they're making a film about toys, and
Mhm.
putting that much money in showed they had a lot of faith in the people who are making it. We can talk about Michael Bay in a minute, but the studio obviously had a lot of faith and we're going to put money in,
He
and it
makes
was
successful movies. Can't argue that. Like,
oh yeah,
like his fault or
exactly,
not, he
yeah,
knows
yeah,
how to
yeah.
make money. And if you're an
Um,
investor, if you're putting money into something, and they're like, "Who do you want to make your movie?" Michael Bay is not a bad choice.
I mean, it was shopped around by two producers, which I think might have been before, Don Murphy and Tom DeSanto, who are still involved with the franchise now. It was them that actually got the film made. They took it to people, including Spielberg, and Spielberg took the idea of a boy getting his first car, and it turns out to be a transformer, which is a very Spielbergy kind of thing.
Yeah,
And he really clung on to that idea, and then obviously that was that, and they got Michael Bay on board, and that was that really. But anyway, it made 70.5 million dollars in the US box office on its opening weekend, which is not bad. It's definitely been higher. It was okay, and it ended up doing about 320 million in the US, and then another 389 million in the world, which added up to makes 708-ish million for its box office. So under a billion, but not a bad amount of money for a
the first
franchise
one.
that, well, yeah, for
Investment returns not that terrible, is
oh
it?
yeah, it ended up with, I think it was about four times its production budget um in roughly.
What I think is also interesting, right? Sign of the times, right? So, um, firstly, it had video release. Just think
Yeah.
it's mad, right? So the video release was the total was there, right? But then you've got Blu-ray and DVD, and Blu-ray is a fraction, like a
Oh,
literal teeny fraction of DVD sales. And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Blu-ray, I mean, I had my first Blu-ray player quite early on, but it clearly just had not hit that
No,
stage
no, no, no.
in perception. But it just that's kind of jumps out to me.
Oh,
So what was it? Total
yeah.
home video is about
So
300
yeah,
million. So
so th
oh, there, but with that in the worldwide box office together, it's pretty impressive figures.
yeah, so the domestic video is the DVD and the Blu-ray. Video
Oh yeah,
cassettes
that is.
weren't a thing.
Oh,
That's my not being clear in
oh,
my
AJ.
in my little thing. But
I was all
anyway,
excited by that fact as well. Oh, I'm
but
like,
still, it did 295 million off of DVD sales, which is bonkers, and then another 8
290.
million on Blu-ray sales. Can you imagine selling that many Blu-rays? I mean, DVDs or Blu-rays. I mean, this was back in a time where you'd go into a shop and there would be walls and walls and walls of DVDs. And you go into a supermarket, there'd be whole sections of DVDs and videos. Now you're lucky if it's like one small section.
Yeah.
So people just
My
don't.
local one doesn't do them at all. My
Yeah,
local Tesco, when I first moved, had a decent wee selection. Doesn't do them at all now. I actually don't think Tesco's doing video games either anymore, like at all.
no, no.
Just physical media
Uh,
is dying.
my Morrison's has one like 4 foot by 6 foot section, and that's got nothing in it.
Can I
Uh,
tell a fun wee story about DVDs? Show my
sure.
age. Show my age. Right, so I've said before how I love movies, especially in my teenage years. Um, after I brought it back and just watched movies constantly, I could consume movies like nothing else. Just like I always enjoy. You and I have talked about our kind of positive mentality things. I always look for something I enjoy in a movie because I always appreciate that people have worked hard on it. Might not land, and sometimes just work just doesn't land. So I always like to look for positive. So I always quite enjoyed finding bizarre films. But anyway, I bought a DVD player when they were like stupidly like nobody was buying them yet. They were totally not. And I used to go to HMV and they had two bookcases worth. That was all they had. And they did their first ever sale, and it was three DVDs for £50. Because prior to that, they were £20 a piece. Three at £50, and I bought six and thought I was on a winner. And I can tell you, one of them, I think, Matrix. I bought the Matrix, like because the Matrix was a pivotal DVD one. Anyway,
Mm.
sorry. So, and then this film was the first HD DVD I bought. I never even bought a Blu-ray player at first. I went HD DVD because it went through
Uh,
the Xbox 360, and I bought Transformers 2007 on HD DVD.
awesome. Yeah. Weirdly, my first DVD was The Matrix.
They've not added the £12 they made in HD DVDs in there.
Yeah, no, they haven't added that. I think it's because HD DVDs is failed media. It's like saying how
Yeah,
many Betamax they sold. But yeah, you add those two things together and you've got $1 billion movie. And
and
that's not including the toy sales,
yeah,
which
and
I
and
mean,
that's a big bit. I don't know how they calculate it, but there must be a bit of they go. Well, for example, Transformers One just now, right? We were talking about it before the show, um, how much it's doing domestically, i.e., America. But it's not just about the how many ticket sales. It's
oh
how many
no, no,
ticket
no.
sales, what toys do they do. It's a franchise. Like you think back to Star Wars was the first one to really do that, where it capitalized on the film's not just the film; it's about how it captures you in so many different ways. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I mean, it still has to make its money back and stuff. Still okay in terms of box office, but we'll see. So, I don't want to go too much more into the movie because we are going to do a watch along. I think we should give our opinions and things in that.
Mm.
But it was right to kind of bring it up and talk about it being released. Like it was a seminal point. It was a big, massive change. Like that, I still think that first ever trailer for it. We'll probably not talk about them. I suppose we do it, but the first ever trailer, I remember just being so excited.
Oh
And I
yeah.
also remember having to it was where it was aired. It was aired in America, but it was aired at like 1 in the morning over here, and I stayed up to watch it
Hmm.
and recorded it on video, and I just rewatched it in video and video and video because I was just like, this is great. Like, I'm actually going to go see a real Transformer film in the cinema. It was just an exciting time. An exciting time.
One thing that is connected to the film, but also connected to the toys and other things. Uh, I hadn't really realized until going through this, but this is the first year that Bumblebee is front and center.
Yeah,
That he becomes because you can't think of Transformers without Bumblebee these days, and every time you go to a shop, there's a Bumblebee or 15 Bumblebees or 312 Bumblebees. But prior to this film, and yeah, he is the main Transformer character, but prior to this, he was just Bumblebee, the little yellow bot that hung around with Optimus Prime. He wasn't. He was a
it wasn't
big
even in anything.
character. Well, yeah,
Post G1, he was in nothing.
yeah, exactly. He wasn't. He wasn't a character in any of the post G1 storylines until now.
And then I'm trying to think, he's a part of every, he's a part of every, is he in Prime?
He's in Prime, but Prime's post
Yeah, so he is.
Transformers the movie.
So as long as
Yeah,
I'm just
he's
trying to
in.
think, post movie, I'm just trying to think, post movie, is there any he's not been?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's a single
I,
Transformers thing that. Yeah,
or okay, I've changed my opinion. Transformers 2007 is not my second favorite film anymore. It's the worst because Bumblebee's a pain in the arse. No, I'm
yeah.
kidding.
Look,
um,
look, it's hardly wheelie. Anyway,
so the other thing that came out this year, and this I am happy to talk about, and again I could do a separate episode on this, is my favourite animated show, probably. I think it's just changes through your moods. Transformers Animated had its feature length premiere in 2007, and again, probably a wee bit like the movie where it had its naysayers beforehand, and people going, "Oh no, I don't know." Because we've seen that with Transformers One of people having their opinions before it.
hmm,
Transformers Animated absolutely had hatred before it aired. There was so many people weren't even going to give it a chance, and then it dropped an outstanding opening feature length premiere of was it Transform and Rollout.
hmm.
Um, uh, even just from the very beginning, where they were watching the archives and it's the G1 cartoon, it hit the nostalgia bit, but also had great humor, um, character designs that then turn into toys that were perfect. Transformers animated, and I think we should go into more of it in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
I absolutely love Transformers animated, and I remember genuine joy and smiling throughout watching the feature length premiere. And I think probably a part of that was having lower expectations because I thought, oh, this isn't really for me. I definitely said this before. Definitely did not feel Unicron trilogy was for me in the slightest. You know, other than a handful of Armada episodes, I think I've maybe seen a dozen. I never watched the rest of it. Just never clicked with me. I thought this was going to be the same, and then there was a little bit of buzz when it aired. I thought, oh, I'll give this a shot, and I was massively proved wrong in terms of it not being for me. It was absolutely for me and for many of us.
Hmm. Um, I'm gonna do exactly the opposite.
The YouTube show's
There's
cancelled.
some caveats. There's some caveats to this. So I was really excited for Transformers animated because I really wanted to see a new animated show that was using G1 characters. I was a little concerned that Megatron was playing Prime, but I could get past that. I wasn't massively sold on the designs, but this is on the same year you've got polar opposites in terms of design. You've got the Bayverse stuff that's like overly complicated, realistic madness, and then you've got this overly stylized animated style. And I didn't have I don't know what it was airing on over here, but I dodgy downloaded it from somewhere or other, or it was pre-YouTube really. So it was wherever I got it from, I can't remember. It wasn't particularly great quality, and I sat down and I watched it with my mate, and I hated it. I hated it. And I think it might have been my mood at the time or whatever else. But I didn't actually go back and rewatch animated until about 2011, 2012. Then I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, a lot of
And
people. A lot
and
of
and and I loved the toys when they came out. I didn't buy many of them, but there was just too much to buy at that point. But yeah, when it first came out, I did not like it. But now I'm completely converted. I absolutely love animated. The show is so good on so many levels.
It's
But
a
we'll talk
love letter
about
to
that.
G1. It's a
Oh
love letter
yeah,
to G1. And I
yeah, it
think
really is.
this is the first time that that kind of happens. There's points after this, you can see real G1-esque moments at
Yeah.
the animated shows, but that's what happens. So that was the first three episodes here. So we'll not talk more about it because we'll
Nope.
hold that until we have a quieter 2008 episode to talk about. The other bit that was quite interesting is in mid of 2007, the Rebirth airs for the first time in Japan, because obviously they had their own version of Headmasters. I would love to know. No, I haven't went and watched Headmasters like way past when it's aired in Japan. After the Rebirth for me is one of my absolute favorite things to watch.
Hmm.
To go and then watch Headmasters, I kind of found it like, kind of okay. This wasn't what we got in the US. Rebirth's not perfect, but because I don't think anything perfect, but it was so good. It was a nice way to finish G1. If
Yeah,
that's the way
yeah.
to finish G1, it's a nice way to finish it. Do I wish there was more? Yes, but I'm okay with it being the way it ended. I would love to know somebody in the opposite opinion who was in Japan, had only ever seen Headmasters, and then, you know, what would that have been like 20 years later? What would it
Uh,
maybe 20 years later, something like that? 19 years later, watched Rebirth for the first time, was like, what is this? I think it would be really interesting to see that. But I don't think David's been in that position to know. But yeah, it's kind of just an interesting concept that
yeah,
they
no.
actually did release it.
I suppose in some ways it must have been a bit like when they stuck that first episode of Headmasters on the
Yeah,
DVD for the
yeah,
Transformers the movie about
yeah,
five
yeah,
or 10 years before this. That was the first time I saw any of the actual Japanese cartoons, and it had
yeah. Yeah, I
that
think it might be for me as well. Actually, I forgot about that. Oh.
and that had that ridiculous dub with
Do
the
you think do you think the Japanese got a ridiculous dub of the Rebirth just to
probably.
make it fair?
um
Oh.
Yeah, it's other quick thing on the media. The soundtrack albums for the film came out, which you had your usual the album that had like all of the songs and whatnot. I can't apart from uh Linkin Park, I can't actually think of a single song that's in that film.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I can if I'm watching it, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
think of
But
it.
it's not like Transformers the movie where
No,
you can sing word for word half the blooming album.
but the Steve Dlonsky uh score, that's the word. Even though I'm reading the word, the score, I loved that. As soon as it became available, I listened. I'm a big soundtrack fan anyway. I tend to listen to sort of film soundtrack music when I'm doing work and stuff because you can just listen to it in the background. But I listen to that score to death and love it so much now. It's up there with the Vince DiCola stuff for me. But hey, that's me.
Okay, so moving on. We talked about tie-ins. So the next kind of big tie-in we kind of started to see was the 17 different movie prequels they seemed to release for it in the comic format. It wasn't 17. There was three, and then there was an adaptation. There was loads of different bits. But I think this is the point where IDW have really ramped up. They have got a pile of comics going out. In the shorter kind of small ones. Some highlights for me. They had Megatron Origin coming out. They had
Hmm.
some cracking Transformer spotlights come out. Soundwave is always going to be the best one, of course, because it's Soundwave. Doesn't matter what actually happens in it. It just is. They had the animated movie adaptation, which, if I'm correct, and I could be wrong, it has been known that twice in my life I've been wrong. I'm sure the animated movie comic was the adaptation for that was done by Bob Budiansky,
Yes,
which
and
I
we
think
just
was his first time coming back to the franchise since he handed the reins over to Simon Furman. Again, could be wrong, but I think I'm right.
okay. You are right.
Yes,
And I know
kind of.
this because we spoke about this last episode because it's only issue 4 that came out this
Oh, did
this
we?
week. The other 3 were the last episode. So a bit of deja vu going on there, but yes.
Oh, you're right. But
But yeah, no,
deja vu. It's
that's
a bit crazy.
all right. We're
Um,
getting old. Um,
Honestly, like some absolutely cracking aspects of the stuff coming out. The other one that jumped out to me was Marvel Comics having a
yes.
Transformers comic as well,
Yeah.
which was the new Avengers versus Transformers, which I have the 4 issues of those. I actually remember just being excited by the idea of Marvel coming back in because I thought, if Marvel did some Transformers, we could get Circuit Breaker, we could get some of those first, original characters, some Death's Head, and there's been good comics since, but that's an interesting year for them to
Yeah.
kind of
Um,
for the amount of stuff they brought.
of note as well is the Transformers, the Titan magazine's Transformers comic magazine, which was harkening back to Transformers UK in a small way because it reprinted some of the Transformers movie prequel comics, but it also had backup strips written by Simon Furman. Art in some of them, at least, was done by Jeff Senior.
Wow, I
Um,
know that.
and oh yeah, no, they're awful. They're
Simon, if you're listening, I don't agree. Like,
no.
don't
Sorry,
don't don't cancel on the if you keep going, please, please.
the magazine
Simon, we
on
need
the
you.
whole was awful because it's one of those,
Good save, good
you
save.
know those
Yeah,
magazines you get at the moment.
the kids
It's
ones that are.
like word searches. You have to have a toy stapled to the front of it, otherwise nobody will buy it.
Oh my God,
Um,
both of my kids have loved them. Sean, when he broke his arm, picked three up and asked for all of them, and I was just like, I don't even want to buy you one. I bought him one, and it like opened. He took the toys off. Wait, this is crap. And just put it down. I was like, there's like £6 in my life. I'll never look back. £6. And I think back to the only times I ever saw a Transformers comic, I wasn't allowed it. It was probably like 30 pence back then. I'm a
um,
mug of a parent.
another fun thing about the Titan magazine thing, not wanting to keep going on about it, but a mate of mine actually worked on it. He was like an associate editor and then became an editor, but he was it was basically being an associate editor in a magazine like that is like making sure the pages are numbered correctly and doing the word search and stuff. But that's for another day about the competitions in that magazine. Dum de dum de dum. Yeah, next.
Okay, so there was also a pile of tie-in books, excuse me, sorry, as well as comics. Um, Nothing that jumps out massively exciting.
Yeah, um, there was a prequel novel. That's the only thing I put the books in for. I think it was Ghosts of Yesterday.
Okay,
Um, and it was set in like the 1930s or 20s, or it was before Megatron got moved to Hoover Dam.
okay,
And it was about Bumblebee and Starscream on the moon, and there were shenanigans involved, and trying to move Megatron from where he was because he was thawing out to get him to
yeah,
Hoover Dam when Sector 7 was being formed. Um, yeah, it was really interesting, and it was the first sort of like novel of Transformers that wasn't an adaptation of something else that I remember reading since, well, probably ever.
I don't remember any of them. I remember seeing the novelization and nearly buying it and then going, "Oh, I'd just rather watch it again." Like it doesn't. It's not the kind of thing that I think go. I'd love to read the book of. Like whereas things like a Jurassic Park or stuff like that, where it was a book first, and well, you can see that taking a movie and making it a book just never really appealed to me. Especially something like that. It was all about the visual. It's not in the nicest way of the film. It's not like it's the most. It's a captivating story. You're like, I'd love to read this. It's visual. It's a visual film, but that's all Michael Bay does. So then we go into kind of video games. So up to this point, we don't have a lot of video games
No.
really to talk about. You know, the one standout was the Armada game, which was
Mhm.
outstanding. There's a couple on the Famicom stroke NES. Some of them are about Japan only, but it wasn't massive. And then we hit the point where now they can produce cheap, crappy games, brand it with Transformer, and hope it sells, and probably did. So there was a Transformers video game that was distinctly average, and we're into a phase until High Moon Studio take over. We have lots of games coming through. So there's the Transformers the game. There was DS, Autobot, and Decepticons. We do kick off with some mobile games, but none are massively impressive. I did go through a phase where I would try and pick up every Transformers game just because it was Transformers. And even a diehard idiot like me, gave up very quickly, going, these are hot garbage. If you haven't played them, do not recommend them.
No, there are quite a few terrible ones. The Transformers, the game, though, I, I agree with you. It wasn't a great game. I did enjoy it. I don't think I ever finished it. Um, it seemed to involve a lot of standing somewhere to do something and getting run over by random
Yeah.
Decepticons a lot. And there's the time limit things I can't really remember. But what was quite cool about it was that it introduced a bunch of Bayverse characters um, into the games that weren't in the films. So you had a
Yeah.
level with Shockwave, who obviously turned out to be completely different in the things. But then you had loads of like Decepticon troopers and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And some of these actually made it into the toy line, um, which was quite an interesting thing. But yeah, it wasn't great, but it was a Transformers game that I could play on my Xbox, which is the first time I
Yeah.
had one of those.
And I did buy it for that reason. Like I remember going, oh, even if it's a bad Transformers game, it's still a Transformers game. And this was not the worst. It does get to a point where some of them are just hot piles of garbage. But then also the movies kind of get like that as well. So
Yeah,
high-end video games don't always work. In fact,
no,
for the vast majority of the time, I would say they probably don't work. There are a handful of exceptions, some that just stand out. But
yeah.
so we're going to call it there because we are going to come back for you listening. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about the toys. And did you work out there was 19 different toy line
Yeah,
sub lines of toys in this
yeah,
year,
I think
which
it's 19.
is frightening, frightening.
Ridiculous.
So thank you also all for watching or listening. Thank you, Simon, for joining me in this journey through 2007. So much more to talk about. We'll be back at some point for a 2007 movie watch along where we'll talk a bit more in detail about it. And we'll be back very shortly with a very long episode. It feels like it's going to be talking about the toys. So thank you very much. Please like, subscribe, turn on your notifications to make sure you don't miss any of this exciting chat as we go through 40 years of Transformers. Till next time, bye for now.
Bye.